hear myself, but now I can. Wow. Hey, Social Music Talk. Hey, how you doing? It's a brand new show. I'm Alex Cosper with my producer, Sam Cadura. How you doing, Sam? Sam, can you hear me in the other room? Okay. This is the first show of many, many, many shows where we're going to interview all kinds of music and radio people and anyone connected with music. And I've got my friend on the line, David Conley from Monterey. And hey, Sam, are we ready to talk with David? Okay, great. David, are you there?
I am.
Oh, great. How you doing, David? You're celebrating your 15th anniversary at the Sardine Factory owned by Clint Eastwood in Monterey.
Well, the only thing is, Alex, is that I actually moved here to play at the Mission Ranch, which is owned by Clint Eastwood.
Oh, okay, okay. I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
So
the Sardine Factory is actually a place he goes a lot. I see him there a lot, but he's not actually an owner yet.
Okay. Sorry, I mixed up the story.
He did own the first place I went.
But I know he was in the story. I've got the
that's right. That's why I moved to Monterey, because of him.
So how well do you know Clint?
I don't know him very well at all. He's not a rock and roller, as you know.
Okay.
So what happened was every time he would come in to see me at the Mission Ranch, he'd kind of give me that look like I was making his day. And I felt like he was going to, kill me. So I decided instead to take the request I was doing and just, ignore it. But I suppose I should have known there was trouble there because he wasn't digging it. So he ended up letting me go. And that was right before I went to the Sardine Factory. So that kind of worked out for me.
I remember you told me that story. It's been years, but thanks for refreshing my memory. Now, you've been there 15 years. So tell us about your anniversary coming up. You're playing live almost nightly there at the Sardine Factory, and you play piano and keyboards, and you also bring other instruments, right? And people dance?
Yeah, I play guitar there sometimes at the table. It's kind of a serenade situation. And of course, I sing, too.
A lot of cover songs, but you mix in your originals.
Yeah, my thing is requests. So I take requests, including requests for my own music. And so I just kind of waited out till I get a request for one of my songs and use that opportunity to sort of plug what I do and, sell CDs. I probably sell a lot more CDs at the Sardine Factory than I've ever done online. So it's a good setup for me there.
Also, your website, davidmconley.com.
Yeah, davidconley.com costs too much money, so I want davidmconley.com.
You mean there's more than one David Conley?
Yeah, well, they saw me coming when they asked what I wanted to pay, so I decided not to let that happen. And, I went with David M. Conley, which was much cheaper.
So what do you got planned for your 15th anniversary show?
Well, besides the usual drunken fare, because I do attract a lot of drinkers, it turns out.
But that's a nice place, and it's a nice tourist attraction, right?
It is, and that's the thing. It's a bit of a landmark in Monterey, so we do get a certain amount of people that are high rollers that really want to have a good time, and that's what sort of kept me around, because being able to do a variety of music has been the key for me, and that's why I'm a music teacher, because I like to meet students where they live. And so one of the things that's going to happen at the Sardine Factory that night is that some of my students are going to sit in with me and sort of show what they've been learning. And I've got students that range in ages from 7-year-old to adult. So you can imagine the variety of music that is entailed with that arrangement. And that's kind of my thing, is variety. So taking requests is ideal for me, because I get to do a variety of music, and I never know what I'm going to do next.
It's from a lot of different genres, from a lot of different eras. I know you go back before the 50s as far as knowing music. You even know classical music.
Yeah, I try to know it all. I'm probably the best at the 60s. That's definitely my focus.
60s hits, like party hits.
Yeah, and and a few rock and roll classics as well. That to me, it all kind of started there, and I branch out from there into the 70s, 80s, 90s, etc. But my heart's in the 60s. I think we always have a thing for the music we grew up with, and for me, the 60s was my growing up time. So I got to see the Beatles and Help and the first run in '65 in the theater, and I just was sold from that point on.
Yeah, Beatles. We got producer Sam, me, and you, Dave, and we're all Beatles fans. That's one thing we have all in common here.
It's great stuff, it's proving to be great all the way till today. The White Album's another big hit for the Beatles all over again.
All these 50-year anniversaries, through next year are coming up for Beatles anniversaries. Like we're up to the 50th anniversary of the Abbey Road studio performance on top of the building.
Right.
The rooftop.
Yeah, that just passed.
Yeah.
But did you see that Peter Jackson's going to remake the movie Let It Be?
Okay, that's awesome. I didn't know that.
He's going to do a redo. They're also going to release it in its original form, remastered. But they feel like it's a little too depressing, so he's going to come in and take the footage and do a re-edit and a remaster that allows it to be a little happier of a movie.
Are they going to leave out the part where George goes, "If you want me to play, I'll play," like he's telling Paul, like, "Don't tell me how to play."
That was always painful to watch.
Yeah, watching the documentation of the greatest band ever breaking up.
Well, that's it. That's what Let It Be looks like, and I think they just want it to look like something cooler than that. Yeah. I'm really into the video aspect of music. I love to be able to watch people play their music and see what goes into it. Let It Be is one of those kind of behind-the-scenes kind of movies where you do get to see what the creative process was like in a way that there's no other movie that really illustrates that as well as that particular film. And I'm into it, with my own music. I try to always make a music video because I like the aspect of the visual that goes with it.
Yeah, we'll talk about your music and your videos, but staying with the Beatles for another minute here. You were talking about how your students range from like age 7 to whenever, like older adults. Do you find that even young kids today want to know about the Beatles and want to sing it and play it?
Well, I make sure they don't have a choice. They walk into my house, it's Beatlemania all over again. So, that's the thing about me. I'm soaked up in it.
Yeah. You know all the Beatles songs. If someone came to the Sardine Factory and called out a Beatles title, you could do it on piano?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's the thing is that I try to be that guy, I mean, I don't always make it, but in most cases, I can eke out a little version of something, even if I don't know it that well.
How about A Day in the Life? Do you ever do that one, A Day in the Life?
That's one I do know well. Okay. Yeah, I do that on piano pretty well because I've done it for a while now. And it's one of those epic, I try to go ones, like I do the Abbey Road medley. I try to go with as much epic stuff as I can get away with because it seems like that's what people respond to.
Mm-hmm. When you're at the club and you're playing cover songs, is it more to make people dance or to give them background music?
Depends on the people. I'm really a crowd reader. So if they want background music, I'm there with that. But if you could tell, and they usually let me know once again in their drunken stupor, they let me know that they're ready to dance. It's on the verge of belligerence half the time.
You do all the party nights, right? I mean, you are the entertainment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, I use tracks. So I've got my sounds are beefed up if necessary. So if they want Bruno Mars and all that kind of stuff, I could throw that out there on them.
Right. But you bring sequencers and electronic gear.
Yeah, I try to keep it to a minimum. So I've got pretty much just MIDI track type of machine, which allows me to play the piano and it gives me accompaniment, or I could just put on a track and play along. And I usually do, subtract the piano parts in advance. So that I'm playing the live piano. And it's not unlike how the Beatles performed their songs in the later period, where they would play with a track, and that would be their live performance, even though it wasn't completely live.
With the Mellotron.
All You Need Is Love, Hey Jude. A lot of those songs that you see on video now are done that way.
Yeah, like the Mellotron, the early synthesizer technology.
Well, that's the thing. They couldn't bring that stuff live. So they would, record it on a reel-to-reel. They'd run that reel-to-reel track, and then the Beatles would play live on top of the track and sing live on top of the track.
Okay, that's
or maybe there were background vocals going on or whatever. If you look at the video of All You Need Is Love, Hey Jude, and Revolution, those three have that particular way of being brought about.
Okay. Now let's get into music theory a bit, because we're going to talk with another teacher and coming up later this hour, Nelson Del Pino out of Tacoma. And he's a vocal teacher. You are too, Dave. Tell us about the instruments you're involved with and how you teach.
Okay, well, I teach vocals, piano, guitar, bass, and drums. And what I do is I basically meet students where they live in the same way that I take requests and try to work the crowd at the Sardine Factory. I pretty much do that with my students, too. So if you ask a 7-year-old what kind of music they like, they don't really know most of the time. But if you expose them to a few things like SpongeBob SquarePants or Sound of Music or rock and roll, whatever it is that kind of gets them going, then you can sort of know what direction to take them in. But as the kid gets older, they start to have a taste in music and want to do certain things. So a lot of times, for instance, a kid will come to me with guitar lessons and say he wants to play Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. Still very popular riff, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's a great way to teach bar chords. And it also teaches them flats and important things just from knowing that one little riff. They get a lot of information. And what they get out of it is they get the riff. So even though they may not remember a lot of the information that went along with the riff, if they get the riff, they're going to practice. And that's what I'm about. It's trying to motivate the kid to practice through meeting them where they live, giving them what they want, and not curriculum-based learning. But in fact, the kid tells me what they're going to play, and that's what we do. And they practice, and they stay with it, and they have fun, and it's a low-pressure scenario for them.
That goes along with the modern thinking of on-demand rather than a one-size-fits-all paradigm.
That's why I like lessons, because people are learning a lot of stuff from YouTube, and that's really great. I'm really glad it's out there, but nobody's there to check their work. So Their progress is based on what they think is right versus what they don't necessarily know is right, and that's my job, is to make sure they know what's right and what's not, as far as just getting the music right on a particular piece.
You're there. You're very articulate about music. But I think the common person, that's what distances them from trying to learn music, like an instrument is. To them, it's a foreign language. Do you think music theory in the past has been taught well to students in general, or do you think it's confused them? It's too complex, and it could be done in a little more broken down in an easier way.
Well, definitely the latter. I always say the same thing when people ask me about music theory, and that is, it's just a theory. It's based on classical music. So if you're going into the classical music realm, then it works really well to supplant that in terms of analysis and understanding how to create. But it doesn't work as well when it comes to other genres. So then you sort of have to adapt the music theory to the genre. And I have my own version of a music theory that I teach, which is sort of a rock music theory that involves things like chord scales and box positions on the guitar, that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So it really, I think, as far as music theory goes, depends on the kind of music you want to play. If you can narrow that down, then you can sort of create a theory template that gives you the basics without having to get into all the math and difficult aspects of music theory proper that I was taught in college that made me quit college.
Sac State. Sam and I went to Sac State, whereas Sac State where you dropped out of?
That's right.
Okay.
1975 was my first and last year there.
Hey, did you know that Bobby McFerrin went there before he had the #1 hit, Don't Worry, Be Happy?
I did find that out, and I got to see Bobby McFerrin live, and I got to say that dude is one of the very best vocalists of all time, just because he could do any part of the orchestra,
or with his voice.
Anything. He can imitate any sound.
With his voice.
Right. He doesn't need any help.
Right.
Other than overdubs,
So when it comes to music theory, do you think someone who just wants to learn a lot of cover songs, do you think they need to learn a lot about music, or do you think they can just learn the chords and just have fun with that?
Well, I think they need to learn a lot of chords.
Okay.
That's the thing. When it comes to chords, they're never enough. It's an infinite spectrum.
Well, it's like the joke. Pop is 3 chords for 1 million people, and jazz is 1 million chords for 3 people.
Right. And if only that were a joke, right? Yeah. But that's the thing is that.
But see, I love jazz.
I like it. I'm not in love with it by any means, but I play it, and I try to honor it when I play it. But the thing about jazz is that it is kind of complex, and I'm a fan of simplicity. So for me, the simpler the better. There are some simple jazzier tunes out there that I enjoy, but I think that like anything else, even rock had this moment where it was just too complex.
Yeah.
Once progressive rock came into the scene, it became like jazz.
Yeah.
It became
so difficult
to
Moody
play.
Blues, Pink Floyd, they got really complex. But you know what? I wish they could have taken it further. But still, the basic stuff. What's cool is lived on as well. So it's good to have that diversity, I think.
That's what I like. I like the variety. I do a song by Yes. I do Roundabout. You know, I mean, I can play a complex song. I do a lot of jazz tunes that are fairly complex. Take 5 by Dave Brubeck. You know, it's in 5/4. It's got complexities to it. But at the same time, my heart is in the simplistic stuff, and so I really feel like a lot of people are like me that way. And I think that's why I've been at the Sardine Factory for 15 years, because I like the same music that the clientele likes. You know?
Do you find a lot of people there like a lot of 60s and 70s?
It turns out that not only do a lot of people love that music because they grew up with it, but a lot of young people love that music because I think they realize it's better than what they're listening to.
Okay, so you've heard a lot of positive feedback as that being timeless music.
Yeah, especially since I learned my top 40. When I get young people, I'm like, "Do you want to hear top 40?" They go, "No, go back to the 60s. We like that better."
Wow. Okay, so that's kind of what I've been hearing from several people. That are doing music professionally, that the 60s, 70s is kind of that core, and even 80s. And even when we were doing radio in the 90s in Sacramento at Quad.
And that was the last gasp as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
That was the end of it.
Right. You hosted the Sound of Sacramento. You're the one who inspired me to create that show. And so it was a local show with music.
Well, we had a lot of fun back then talking about local music and being in the local music scene and being a part of it and wanting, to lift everybody. And, of course, Quad did a lot for that, for a lot of local artists. In fact, Papa Roach came into Mission Ranch while I was there. And, they were like, "We didn't know you were a musician," because they remembered the show,
Right.
And they were thinking I was a radio personality. I'm like, "No, I'm not a radio personality. I am a musician." So I was kind of stretching out there.
That's because I was looking
for
the real me. When I was hiring people at Quad, I deliberately looked for musicians as well as jocks. That's why I hired Allie Storm, who played saxophone, and Ron Gibbons played drums. So and Sean and Jeff were involved with music. No,
it was cool, and the Beat Villains gig where we got to play, with Shakespeare's Sister and all that. It was kind of like we were able to do stuff as musicians with the radio thing that allowed us to express ourselves musically, not just when we were on the air, but at some of the events as well.
Right. Well, you know what? We're going to have to wrap this up with you talking about your music. We have a song lined up, I Need It Now. Tell us about your music a little bit, and we'll play the song.
Thank you. Well, the song I Need It Now is my newest song, and that's the first one that I've had produced. My friend Nate Ersley, who goes by Dead Stark online, helped me with the remixing and producing of the song. And then I was able to hire a video company in L.A. that normally does real stuff, and they were willing to give me a deal to do the footage, and then I did the editing on the video. So it's kind of like I put a little more into it than what I've done in the past in terms of spending a little money on it, and it's because I think the song's pretty good. And also, it's available on my website, davidmconley.com.
And also, it's important to point out that you record at home. You have a lot of gear, right? And you're a one-man band, pretty much, right? Pretty much, yeah. Is there anyone else on this recording, or is it all you?
It's all me.
Okay. Here it is. I Need It Now from David Conley. Social Music Talk. WS Radio.
Thanks, Alex.
Tolerate the machine to sell your soul. Tolerate a human being, and you're in control. Patience is a virtue. That's what I've been told. With patience and tolerance, it's part of getting old. This world is on fire when you want what you ain't got. Humility versus desire. You need to learn to take your shot. Patience is a virtue. That's what I've been told. With patience and tolerance, it's part of getting old. I can't wait for a future day. My world's full of hate. I need love now. I wanna try to be a patient guy, but I cannot lie. I need love now. you behave. You may not like what you see, but you may see something you crave. Patience is a virtue. That's what I've been told. With patience and tolerance, it's part of getting old. I can't wait for a future day. My world's full of hate. I need love now. I wanna try to be a patient guy, but I cannot lie. I need love now. I need it now. We're both gonna change each other. Maybe for better, maybe for worse. We both remember to love ourselves. Change is not a curse. I can't wait for a future day. My world's full of hate. I need love now. I wanna try to be a patient guy, but I cannot lie. I need love now. I need it now. I need it now. I need it now. I cannot lie. I need love now. I need it now.
Wow. That's good stuff.
Number one in America with Casey Kasem. That was awesome, David.
Wake up, wake up.
I Need It Now. I Need It Now is the song. We're still hearing some of it. Kind of like Strawberry Fields Forever fades out and then comes back.
Yeah, it wants to do that. Doesn't want to go away.
So, but you have your own sound. You've been inspired by the Beatles, obviously, but the Beatles' whole story was not don't copy. It wasn't copy us. It was be your own sound, and that's what you do.
That's right. That's right. I believe that. Lennon even said that in one of his last interviews. Be your own Beatles. You know, It feels like that was the message of the Beatles.
And they weren't so much about following the rules as they were breaking the rules. But at the same time, they did conform to some traditions, but they were able to mix in their own innovation.
They were, and you know, they realized that they had a certain power once they made it with the Beatlemania thing, and so it sort of enabled them. And I'm kind of feeling like having my gig and not feeling like I have to play my originals at my gig is empowering, because then I can record them however I want. I don't have to be able to do them live. But when I do them live, I keep them really simple, just piano and vocal or guitar and vocal, nothing else.
Yeah, you do play guitar a lot. And in fact, as a guitar teacher and you teach piano, you've sold pianos too. What do you think for a beginner is like one of the easiest instruments to play versus one of the hardest? Like, do you think piano...
Well, I say drums are the easiest.
Okay.
Because drums, you can't hit a wrong note. So it always sounds okay, you know, as long as you can keep a beat.
But if you hit a wrong beat, that's terrible, right?
Yeah, you got to work at it, but at least, you know, the mistakes aren't quite as noticeable. Piano, I'd say second, keyboard and piano, because you can hit a key and it sounds good.
Yeah.
Guitar, you have to work at it. It's very physical, as you know.
Right.
Getting the calluses and the coordination is not an easy feat.
Plus, piano's
more difficult.
Piano's more precise of an instrument. Guitar, the tuning is can easily fall out of tune.
Yeah, but I've heard some out-of-tune pianos in my day.
Okay. But do you think back in the day, like 1890s, people didn't have radio and you had pianos in people's homes. That was the entertainment, the pop music back then with sheet music. We've come a long way since then. Are there still a lot of people who know sheet music and play piano at home?
My hope is yes. I mean, I try to get my students to learn music, but I don't force it on them. So I would say that there's less of an interest in reading than there used to be, which I'm okay with because I'm really trying to make musicians, not music readers.
Mm-hmm.
But it really works for me to be able to read music because I take requests. So when somebody wants some of those jazz tunes from the old days, I could just pop out a book and do it.
Right.
So I believe in music reading. I mean, it's paid for itself for me.
David,
yeah.
we're wrapping it up, but good luck with your 15th anniversary in Monterey. You're number one on Reverb Nation there. Thanks for calling in, David.
Thank you, Alex.
DavidMConley.com on WSRadio.com.
Can you imagine a world without children? A world without their smiles or their laughter? A world where children don't play or sing or dream or imagine?
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we can't imagine a world without children. That's why we're working every day to find cures for diseases that strike down children everywhere. Diseases like cancer, pediatric AIDS, and sickle cell. And we won't stop until every child is cured and every disease is defeated. Because we can't imagine a world without children. Can you?
Finding cures, saving children. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. To learn how you can help, log on to our website, stjude.org.
Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
You take your smartphone almost everywhere you go. Now WSRadio.com can be there too. Search WS Radio in the Play Store for your Android devices or iTunes for Apple and download the WS Radio application. WSRadio.com. On your phone and in your ear everywhere you go. Download the WS Radio application. Do it now. It's very easy. WSRadio.com.
You were born to do one amazing thing, but most people spend a lifetime trying to identify what it is. If you're in a job you don't like or are unemployed, if you're in a state of transition or just can't shake that nagging feeling that you were meant and made to do something extraordinary, then the Reinvention Workshop is exactly what you need. Led by award-winning self-help author Steve Olsher, the Reinvention Workshop will forever change your life. The Reinvention Workshop takes you step by step through Steve's proven formula that has helped so many people get on the right path and clear about what they were born to do. Take the first step to realizing the life you deserve and desire by visiting the reinventionworkshop.com today. No more delays. No more denial. Reconnect with your true self. Learn to live with purpose and conviction and become who you were born to be. The world is waiting for you. What are you waiting for? Log on to the reinventionworkshop.com today. That's the reinventionworkshop.com.
Alex Cosper back here with Sam Cadura. We're on Social Music Talk here on WSRadio.com from the studios of San Diego. Very rainy day today, the day before the big game, the big championship football game. And
real windy, too.
Yeah, but we'll be talking next week. And by the way, we're a half hour away from another show called The Wide World of Weed.
Sounds groovy.
Must be about cannabis.
Must be.
It is coming up in about a half hour here, right after this show. We have another guest today on Social Music Talk, now from Tacoma, Washington. Knowing all about the Seattle music scene is Nelson Del Pino. Hi, Nelson.
Hey, Alex. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us today. Is it rainy there in Seattle today?
I haven't even looked out the window, probably.
How far is Tacoma from Seattle?
Oh, it's about 20 miles.
Oh, okay. So you must go
on the freeway. It's not bad.
You must go to Seattle then quite often, right? And cruise by the Space Needle?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been up there a few times, yeah.
Okay, so you teach music. There are all kinds of instruments, like you play guitar, piano. You know music theory, and you also you understand the recording studio process. Tell us a little bit about your experience and all that.
Well, I'm a voice trainer, and I started out teaching voice, and that's still what I do. But the problems musicians often have is they can sing, they can play an instrument, but they can't sing and play at the same time.
Yeah. So you help people coordinate that then.
Yeah, and so sometimes the problem isn't with their voice, is they don't know there's certain techniques in the way they're holding their instrument that makes it difficult to breathe or to sing.
Let me tell you a story about me, since you brought that up. Well, I've been playing guitar since I was about 14, but I started out left-handed, like Paul McCartney and Jimi Hendrix. But the teacher, my original teacher, let me do that because he saw I had the guitar upside down. Now, a few years later, a high school teacher told me, no, you better learn right-handed. So he made me restring it normally. And you know what? For 20 years, my right hand had no power in it. I didn't know how to play right-handed. It was awkward. I couldn't sing and play it. In fact, if I tried to play and sing at the same time, it would mess me up either way, either on vocal or guitar. Had you have been my teacher as a kid back then, what would you have told me?
Oh, I probably wouldn't have changed the way you played the guitar. It's just that where amount of pressure you place on the strings, if you really bring out the tone in your instrument, things like that, because people who kind of play guitar, they tend to sing kind of twangy, kind of like the way they hear the guitar, and people who play piano, they kind of sing kind of throaty, kind of like the way the piano sounds, and so... Right. But if you really learn to play your instrument well, you realize that your instrument has a tone that's more than just twangy sounding or throaty sounding. It has its own sound. And so you learn technique and how to bring that out, bring out the best sound out of your guitar and your whatever your instrument may be.
And you yourself understand the crossroads of art and science as what music's all about?
Yes, certainly. It's a bit of both.
And what do you lean in either direction, or are you more of a balance of those things?
Oh, I try to achieve balance, but I realize that people have different different things they favor, and so I try to work with, if a person's more scientific in the way they are, then I try to relate to that side of their personality. If they're more creative and they're not comfortable with technique, then I try to find through their expression how they could improve.
So in Seattle, you've actually been part of the recording process, and you've helped bands and you've produced bands and artists?
Yes. I interned from a producer here and had a lot of help from a lot of other producers and friends, students of mine who are also producers.
Okay, so I entered. Brendan O'Brien, who's produced Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots, just a bunch of people, including Bob Dylan at one time. Brendan O'Brien, I interviewed him back in the 90s when I was on Quad in Sacramento, and at that time, production was really starting to be stripped down compared to what the 80s sound. The 80s built it up into, more elaborate production. 90s stripped it down. The 90s modern rock, got more lean. And then now we're at an era where it's overproduction, I think, like too much noise going into the music that's drowning out the lyrics and melody. What do you think?
Sure. Well, sure. Well, the bottom line to me is if you go to a recording studio, you record to learn, because what you want to be able to do is perform whatever you record in the studio. You want to be able to go out and play in front of people and sound at least as good as you sound in your recording.
Right, or better, right?
Or better, yeah. Basically, the recording is really for you to learn how to really deliver a song and sell yourself to an audience. So
what do you like most about music? I know that you have a global base of students that you deal with through Skype.
Yeah, through Skype, WhatsApp, things like that. Yeah, definitely. I like to work with people. I've even sometimes consulted people over the phone. But music to me is about expressing yourself, your personality. The word personality means through sound. Mm-hmm. And so you are an instrument, and that's people have to hear you, and that's what they identify is basically is your personality, your key. And so you learn how to express that through music, or you learn how to mask it and pretend to be something you're not and just try to sound like somebody else, hoping that you'll siphon off some of their success, maybe.
Hey, speaking of that, now that leads a great segue into this next story about Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. Now, how many bands do you think copied Nirvana, like the sound of soft, hard, that type of, songwriting style?
Well, a lot of people, that's what they tend to do to begin with. People that come to me, they want me to teach them how to sound like somebody else.
Yeah.
It's rare that someone comes to me that they really want to discover their own voice. But sometimes people who have already tried to emulate others, they come to the place where they realize there's no pleasure and satisfaction in singing like someone else and not to be yourself. So that I work both ways. Either way. There's all these different ways of learning.
Well, it seemed to me that when Nirvana came on the scene in 91, I mean, they were around in Seattle before 91, but they blasted on the scene nationally that year. That was a whole new sound to a lot of people. But nowadays, lots of bands sound like that, and I'm just curious. Yeah. It doesn't diminish what Nirvana did, but the copycats, it seems like that's taken the easy way out. Yeah, well,
even Kurt Cobain wanted to sound like Freddie Mercury. When Kurt Cobain, before he was famous, he like a lot of other people, admired Queen. They all wanted to sound like Freddie Mercury, be like Freddie Mercury. He was sort of the role model then.
Mm-hmm.
He
was a big Beatles fan, too.
Yeah. And so there's always that element that people want to emulate those they admire. But I just think when I hear Nirvana, a big part of it was something that came out of the scene at the time, where everybody at the time before Kurt was famous, everybody basically screamed into a microphone. That's what's their basic. I had people come to me saying to me they could never learn how to sing, but they asked me, could I teach them how to scream? And so I said, well, sure, I'll teach you how to scream.
Don't you think, though, that screaming...
why not?
But don't you think screaming can wreck someone's vocal cords?
Well, there's a science of school of music that says it does, and then there's one that says it doesn't, that you can build your voice. My voice... one of my voice trainers told me that Richard Burton, the way he got his voice was he would go up a mountain somewhere where no one could hear him and just started screaming. And when he found a way to scream where it didn't hurt, then that's how he found his famous voice, was just learning how to use your voice like an instrument where you don't damage it, And so maybe it depends on how you practice screaming, because I did teach people how to scream, where they could scream all day, and it had no effect whatsoever on their voice.
Okay. Now, getting back to Kurt Cobain, he was such an influence to a lot of bands. That's why we're talking about him. Kind of like earlier, right. we talked with David Conley, and we talked about how the Beatles influenced everybody. So it's every now and then you have these revolutions where everyone wants to follow certain artists, like you were talking about. But you actually met Kurt Cobain once. You guys had a beer together, you told me. Before you tell that story, let me tell you my quick alcohol story with Courtney Love. Now, I met Courtney Love a month after Kurt died, and she came to San Francisco to play at the Warfield Theater, and I got to meet her backstage afterward. And she was just crazy during this concert. She jumped into the crowd. She jumped into the mosh pit. You know, it was just crazy. She acted very, very drunk. And afterwards, when I met her, she was very, very drunk. And she even admitted it. She said, "You have to excuse me, but I'm very, very drunk." That's my memory of Courtney. What's your memory of your alcohol story with Kurt Cobain?
Well, he was very quiet, very shy, painfully shy.
First of all, how did you get to meet him?
I met him through a student of mine. He opened for him. This was before he was anybody, so I didn't know he was who he was and what he was about. I just met him as a dude, and so I didn't have any. So he was not unlike a lot of other people I knew at the time who just got into a microphone and started screaming, and that was it. You know, that's how my student and how he was. They would just, in the beginning, they just screamed, and that's how they found their voice. Now, when I think of their music, now in retrospect, I attribute a lot of their sound to Butch Vig, their producer. It wasn't just their music; it was the way Butch Vig recorded them was quite differently than how music had been recorded, where they were trying to record very clean tracks where there would be no bleed over from other tracks.
Right.
While someone like Butch intentionally brought noise into the recording.
Right. That's a very important topic, noise. It brings us back to today, how noise is mixed into the music to become part of the music. But the question is, does the noise override the message? The message is the lyrics and the melody, and musically. The noise is part of the technology.
Yeah. Well, I think the message is who you are and what comes across in your music about you. You know, people believe they know celebrities. They meet someone, they see someone on TV, they feel they know them. Well, no, they don't know them.
Right.
But they know them through their music, through their art. And so there's a part of them that is expressed through their music. And
they know snapshots of the person.
Yeah. And so sometimes I think it's a part of also the songwriting and the arrangements of the music that has to be congruent with the style that you're the personality that you're trying to put out there. You know.
Do you think though music's most powerful when the when the message just is clear, like all you need is love? It's not buried under any bells and whistles. It's just there. It is in the lyric.
Well, to be honest with you, Alex, I try not to put my preferences before my students. And so whatever it is that interests them, I get interested. But I try to direct them in a way that I think will convey who they are, so at least they're being real with themselves. And that's my main concern, is don't try to be something you're not.
Right, but there's a lot of pressure.
Other people.
A lot of pressure these days in the music biz, if you actually want to be in the music biz, to follow some other artist, to be a cookie-cutter copy of whatever's selling.
Yes, and I know that, but I've always encouraged people not to do that. Follow your muse. Follow your heart. Follow what you feel you want to express that feels right to you. And so people listen to music for different things, as you know. Some people listen to the lyrics. The lyrics are the primary thing that they identify with, what the story and what the songs are about. Some people just like music with a good beat, something they feel they can move to and dance to. So music can be experienced or appreciated on many levels.
That's true, but there's only one Beatles out there. And I think the reason they were the biggest thing ever is they had a lot of clear messages in their music. They unified the world. They were good, positive messages.
Oh, absolutely.
Have you looked at the
George
Billboard
Martin,
Hot
though, I
100?
think-
Have you looked at the Billboard Hot 100 lately? You can't even read it. It's like a whole different world, and it's not these awesome messages. It's more like these cookie cutter song titles that don't really inspire. They're just marketing is what they are. That's do you find that people
over-processed? They over-process the recording, so the person's voice isn't even their voice.
Right.
They're being they're processed to the point where people are listening to the recording for the effects, not even for the
actual
performance.
The art. Yeah. Well, I'm curious. Do you get a lot of students that want to sound like this new, overproduced stuff, or do you have more that want to hang on to that classic, authentic sound?
Well, the reality is people don't really know what they want until they find something they feel is worthwhile. And so I try to direct people towards things that they feel are worthwhile, and generally, I would direct them away from that. But sometimes people have that presumption that if they just sang or they could produce something and it sounded like so-and-so, they would be successful.
Yeah, but, there's a lot
the point is, even if you were successful, you'd never be happy and you'd never be content, and the journey would mean nothing to you.
Right. Well, a lot of artists, though, I think a lot of artists that make it in the music biz don't end up doing what they wanted to do. They do what the label wanted them to do, and the label uses them for as long as they need them. And then maybe after they leave a big label, then they do what they want, but to smaller audiences because they're not on the radio anymore.
Right. Well, I try to, the people that come to me that tell me they want to be serious about music, I do try to inspire them to want to look at it more like a business, which is that if you look at it like a business, then when you look at a label, you want to have something to negotiate with, your art and your craft, and so you need to have a direction that you want to go, you want to have, and not be reliant them totally on just what their offer, because they're not really looking at it from your interest. You need to be clear about what your interests are, so then you can make that clear for them.
Right. I know what you're saying, that a lot of people don't know what they want to do in music, but they kind of want to fit into music. I think the ones who actually go far, like a band I helped in Sacramento called Cake, they already knew what they wanted to do. They have a very creative sound. It's very innovative songwriting, yet it embraces a lot of tradition, like even big band sounds mixed with rock and roll, mixed with other, electronic music.
Sure.
So that kind of thing, that's why I got behind them, because they were doing a lot of creative stuff behind music. Now, compare that with the ones that are only trying to follow these bland corporate artists that end up unhappy because they go nowhere and they get lost in the shuffle. So I'm just wondering to what degree you see this going on to where maybe the inspiration should be, learn to be creative, not just be yourself, because if everyone's just being themselves, they might want to copy others. That's what the message is from the music biz, copy others. But what you're saying is different, that you should be yourself.
Well, you can improve yourself, let's put it that way, and then put a better version of yourself in front of people and inspire them in that way. The way you feel inspired, you can also, other people can feel inspired too. And, Warner Brothers once sent a client to me, and the guy had trouble singing, hitting certain notes, and he was really angry because they couldn't understand why a major label would send him to a nobody. From his point of view, he was already signed. Who was I? Why would they send him to nobody? Well, it's because they want to test him. They want to see if he's manageable or not. And so if he spits on a 7-Eleven store clerk or, other people, that gives them an indication of how he's going to really treat them once they get behind him. And so they do put out feelers to try to see how manageable you are, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to control you. It just means, can you look at things from some other point of view than just what you want? You know, and so he ended up, you know, like running out of my place. Every time he missed a note, he'd run out into my front yard. And then at one point he started to take things out of his car and throwing them out on the lawn. And just acted insane, you know, maybe, you know, so eventually I heard the song, you know, on the radio, but he wasn't on it.
Really? What was it, a one-hit wonder thing or something that had nothing to do with it?
Yeah, probably was. Okay. Yeah, but sometimes I would get audition tapes or word from different people, you know, that they were auditioning and different opportunities. But it just helps to know what you want, and then I think the opportunity will come. You know, sometimes students have asked me, say, well, the music's kind of, this is the trend, and this music I like, that nobody really cares about it. Well, you do, so do it. You know, it really is, to me, it's about personality is really being authentic and being yourself in front of other people, and then people will listen.
Right. Well, I think there's two categories of stars, you know, and it's kind of been true for a long time. There's what you just said, you know, the person who are themselves, like Prince was himself. He built himself to be multi-talented and the boss of all his music. Whereas then there's the other ones, groups that kind of, you know, girl groups of the 80s, like the Cover Girls, who are some of the others, just a bunch of those that all sounded the same. Sweet Sensation. Expose, the best of those, kind of, you know, and Lisa, they all kind of sounded the same because the label wanted a certain sound and because it's soul. Yeah. And there's two different kind of camps going on here that work.
Well, it's like a factory, you know, the record labels want to create a factory for recording, and then they wanted to, but it's because the people that go into the factory don't really know what they want. They're not using it as an opportunity. It's not an opportunity where they're taking opportunity to, you know, it's called artist development, you know.
Well, see, they used to have that. Really You're right. Yeah. They used to have artist development. They don't have that much anymore. It used to be you'd have 7 album deals, and you were expected to sell by your 4th album. Now, if you don't sell by your 1st album, they just drop you. That's how much the music biz has lost its, you know, funding, financing. It has really fallen in the past 2 decades. As far as all the money behind it, it makes half. You know, well, not half, more than half that it used to make, but it's not even close to what it used to make in the 90s. So we have a falling, declining industry where people are actually rising. If they're an indie artist, there's more opportunities for them, actually, that didn't exist 20 years ago. So, you know, you have sites like ReverbNation and SoundCloud that allow you to put your music up there. And I'm just curious what you think about those opportunities, like online opportunities for indie artists.
Well, people need a development coach. I'm a development coach. I'm a voice trainer, but more than that, I'm a development coach.
All right. Well, Nelson Del Pino out of Tacoma. We are going to wrap it up. Anything else you want to talk about that students need to know real quickly?
Interested in lessons with me, they can contact me through my email, which is nelson@vocalmaestro.com.
Great. Thanks a lot, Nelson Del Pino. And thanks for listening to Social Music Talk on WSRadio.com.
Children don't play or sing or dream or imagine.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we can't imagine a world without children. That's why we're working every day to find cures for diseases that strike down children everywhere. Diseases like cancer, pediatric AIDS, and sickle cell. And we won't stop until every child is cured and every disease is defeated. Because we can't imagine a world without children. Can you?
Finding cures, saving children. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. To learn how you can help, log on to our website, stjude.org.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children.
After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The World Link program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
You take your smartphone almost everywhere you go. Now WSRadio.com can be there too. Search WS Radio in the Play Store for your Android devices or iTunes for Apple and download the WS Radio application. WSRadio.com on your phone and in your ear everywhere you go. Download the WS Radio application. Do it now. It's very easy. WSRadio.com.
You were born to do one amazing thing, but most people spend a lifetime trying to identify what it is. If you're in a job you don't like or are unemployed, if you're in a state of transition or just can't shake that nagging feeling that you were meant and made to do something extraordinary, then the Reinvention Workshop is exactly what you need. Led by award-winning self-help author Steve Olsher, the Reinvention Workshop will forever change your life. The Reinvention Workshop takes you step by step through Steve's proven formula that has helped so many people get on the right path and clear about what they were born to do. Take the first step to realizing the life you deserve and desire by visiting the reinventionworkshop.com today. No more delays. No more denial. Reconnect with your true self. Learn to live with purpose and conviction and become who you were born to be. The world is waiting for you. What are you waiting for? Log on to the reinventionworkshop.com today. That's the reinventionworkshop.com.